let's hear what he has this morning. We also have Senator Marlon Morgan, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, and always on the radio, taking the message forward. We also have with us, I know she should soon be here, Senator Rose Bennett Cooper. We also have Ambassador Sheila Seeley Monteith, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, and other ambassadors are here supporting. So thank you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade team for being here. We also have our Chief Education Officer in our Ministry of Education with us, Mrs. Terry Ann Thomas Gale. We also have Ambassador Maruyama, or Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Japan to Jamaica. It's good to have you, and you'll know why the Japanese ambassador is here later on in the program. We also have with us Hugh Grant, head of the Jamaica Public Service, and we love having JPS here to tell us all about what they've done, and they've done a fantastic job, and so I have to commend you before that. Also, I want to recognize all the members of staff from supporting government ministries, departments, and agencies who are here. Members of the Youth Advisory Council of Jamaica. We also have some students from the UA Department of Government and the Caribbean Maritime University. Members of the media, Jamaicans watching at home and abroad, good morning again. And as I said, it's a quick morning, but an important morning. I usually give you a lot of updates on what we discussed in Cabinet. It was a very robust Cabinet meeting this week. Again, this one ended at about 8 o'clock. So a lot of activities took place. If I have time at the end, I will go through some of what Cabinet did discuss. But in that Cabinet meeting, we did discuss some matters related to foreign affairs, and that's why we have Senator Johnson Smith here. Minister is here with us. And we also discussed electricity restoration, and that's why Minister Vaz and the JPS team are here. So you're actually going to be being able to treat with some of what we were discussing in Cabinet this weekend. So without much ado, I invite the person whose example I like to follow, and one of the reasons I came into government, Senator, the Honorable Kamina Johnson-Smith, our Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, will be first up this morning. Please welcome her.
Morning. I keep waiting for the slightest tone of blame when Minister Morris Dixon says that I got her into this thing. But good morning, everyone. Ambassador, Permanent Secretary, my Foreign Ministry team, of course, Mr. Grant, members of the media, our young people who are here, students of IR, as well as those who we will hear about later, members or representatives of the Ministry of Education, everyone who is joining us online, welcome to this post-cabinet press briefing. I would like to provide an update on two matters under the purview of this ministry. The first, you may have seen in the press, the ministry is currently convening meetings and deliberations with our heads of missions, that is our ambassadors, our high commissioners, and consuls general from across our small but effective representation globally. And the meeting is here to ensure that all our missions are being guided by the most current policies and data and most recent developments here in country, even as we exchange best practices and circumstances that are occurring in situ, that is in the missions themselves and in the countries where they are hosted, as we navigate this world together. The deliberations are enriched by engagements with the Prime Minister, which will take place today. I had the honor and privilege of sitting with the teams yesterday, and I will assure you of the engaged, productive, and fruitful discussions that are being undertaken. The meetings are closed, of course, because they have to facilitate the most frank of discussions and on sensitive issues, but I assure you that they are going well and you are well represented in the jurisdictions where we host missions at this time. Minister Terry Long, you would have seen, had his engagements with mission heads and stakeholders in diaspora affairs, and in particular with our legacy partners who are our right and left hand as we get ready for the Diaspora Conference to take place June 14th to 16th this year. And as you would know, elections are currently underway for the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council and the Global Jamaica Diaspora Youth Council. And I do hope that you are getting involved. We have a record 51 candidates across the jurisdictions this year, and demonstrating the highest level of interest in representation. And we therefore look forward to working with the new slate of elected members of the councils, which, as you know, are an expansion of previous mechanisms which allow for formal coordination of diaspora engagement, and a matter which is a key pillar of our foreign policy. I want to also update you on the fact that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade has been closely monitoring the fuel availability issues in Cuba. Reports indicate frequent, lengthy, and unpredictable electricity interruptions which affect the conduct of daily activities and access to food, medical supplies, and transportation, among others. I provide this update and this awareness in the context that in respect of the Jamaican population in Cuba, we have approximately over 300 students pursuing, Jamaicans pursuing students in various academic institutions across the country. 44 are part of the Government of Jamaica, Government of Cuba scholarship program, and 256 are privately funded or self-funded, as the term is used. Over the past few weeks, some of our students have been reaching out and have advised that their institutions have either closed for a period, in one case for 4 weeks, others that classes have been suspended in favor of virtual studies, which of course have challenges with internet and electricity, but they do occur. And one institution which has suspended in pending an assessment of the situation. So far as we're advised, under the scholarship program, there is one institution which has suspended its classes, and that affects 6 students under the scholarship program, but they are awaiting further advice regarding recommencement of classes. We've also been advised that 13 privately funded students, private students, have taken the decision to return home. It is very unfortunate that students are adversely affected by a program which has been working well for students across the Caribbean for some time, but we understand that the prevailing intent and the drive among the majority of the student body at this time is for their continuation of studies. So what has the ministry been doing? The ministry has been reviewing daily updates from the embassy in Havana, which remains in consultations with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Cuba and the Diplomatic Corps in Havana, and in particular the CARICOM Corps. Students have also been reaching out to seek guidance and to share their circumstances. So we've taken a few actions. Among them, we've established a WhatsApp group with the approximately 320 students for direct and ongoing contact. And this is important because generally, although we are always aware of the scholarship students who travel, the private students don't usually engage with the ministry. They don't necessarily register. So now we have a full registration, a full awareness of the student body that is present. On the 5th of February, that is at a point that you would recognize that there was a certain acuteness in communication and information that was available publicly and internationally. The embassy contacted students and encouraged them to consult with their academic institutions on how their program might be affected by the disruptions and in the event of sudden interruption. Further, we encourage them, and we continue to encourage them, to consult with their parents or guardians on the options available for them at this time and going forward, and also for them to make preparations for emergency circumstances should that be required, for emergency departure should that be required. The embassy also took the further step of dispatching a diplomatic note to the foreign ministry in Cuba, seeking assistance, or rather guidance, in ascertaining how best students could be facilitated in the circumstances, including whether transcripts will be made available by way of policy, whether transcripts will be made available to students who seek to continue their studies elsewhere, if this is occasioned by the disruptions in availability of classes. We also, of course, dispatched from the ministry headquarters a similar request to our counterpart in Havana through the Embassy of Cuba here. An official response is pending. We're waiting on both sides, but an informal response has suggested that direct engagement with institutions is what is required for access to transcripts, but we continue to engage and await a formal response. Regarding our embassy, we continue to provide consular services to Jamaican students and visas to Cuban nationals, but we have a small team of home-based staff, that is Jamaican nationals, 3 diplomatic staff members, who are in fact quite significantly affected. And we're therefore examining how best to manage the provision of consular services, even as we ensure the welfare of our staff, which is of course part of our responsibility under the Foreign Service orders and otherwise. I wish to also make clear that on Monday, Cabinet discussed the situation and is considering what support could be provided to students under the scholarship program for the continuation of their studies should they be disrupted on a prolonged basis or disrupted in a more significant manner than current. And for those who are self-funded or privately funded, it is hoped that engagements with local institutions might be able to identify options about how they could be facilitated. But this is quite a difficult thing to navigate. There's matriculation, there are various considerations, and undoubtedly this will be a matter for significant consideration. I think it's worthy of mention that there have also been recent notifications this week, as a matter of fact, that travel to Cuba is likely to be interrupted, given that there have been formal notifications to the aviation sector that there is a suspension of the provision of jet fuel, and Air Canada, as one international carrier, or example of an international carrier, has indicated that it is suspending flights to Cuba, so that international travel may become more difficult. And in this circumstance, we again continue to ask our students to assess their personal circumstances. We understand that the disruptions vary based on location, proximity to priority areas, and the location of your institution or where they live. So circumstances vary widely. So we want them to assess their circumstances, consult with their parents or guardians, consult with their institutions, and consider their opportunities as well to return home, given that travel will become more difficult if there is not a stabilization of the fuel circumstances. We continue to monitor the situation, however, and we continue to be in touch with our students in this regard and to keep the avenue of communication open. So we will continue, of course, to provide updates as necessary. Thank you.
It's okay to clap her, you know, because it's an important update, and we did spend quite a bit of time discussing it at Cabinet, so you are being brought into the discussions that we do have there in Cabinet. And so up next, Minister, do you want me to go with JPS first? Okay, so we're going to be moving to the JPS. We continue in Cabinet to discuss the effects of Hurricane Melissa. Now, there are many, no. go on to the others. No, it's not going to be that long. We've discussed it. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to be getting the questions after. So we've curated this morning as best as we could to move along more quickly. And so JPS has an agreement with us. So JPS knows what the brief is for today, and they'll be going through their presentation quite quickly. And so they're next. But as I was saying, in the cabinet meeting on Monday, we discussed Hurricane Melissa and post-Hurricane Melissa recovery, as we always do. Every single cabinet meeting, we discuss that. We recognize that there are still many Jamaicans who are in situations that are dire. And so we're working really hard as an administration to support as much as possible. You know, we have the roof program where we've been giving grants to individuals who were affected. There are many other programs we discussed, but key amongst those was JPS and restoration, because we understand that that's what many people want. They want to see light, and in order to get water too, we need to have electricity. And so the JPS was at Cabinet on Monday, and they did a presentation, and decisions were taken there. And so this morning, we have with us Hugh Grant, who is one of our favorite people here at PostCab, to come and tell you very quickly what's happening. And then after that, I will introduce Minister Vaz, and then we go into questions, because remember, we do have a hard stop at 10 o'clock this morning. Hugh, you can clap him too.
Good morning, Senator, the Honorable Dana Morris Dixon, Senator, the Honorable Kamina Johnson-Smith, the Honorable Darrell Vaz, Ambassador, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Today, February 14th, February 11th, approximately Valentine's Day on my mind, and my team warned me about that, because I'm so focused on a Valentine's gift for our customers here. February 11th, 3.5 months after the passage of Category 5 Hurricane Melissa, 97.5% of JPS customers have electricity. Across Jamaica, what does that mean? That means that approximately 673,000 of our 690,000 customers now have power. This progress did not happen by chance. It reflects methodical preparation, investments in our grid, anchored with improvements in technology, disciplined planning, strong execution, and very, very importantly, heightened and effective partnerships. Our collaboration with the government of Jamaica, the National Water Commission, the National Works Agency, my fellow telecom providers, Flow, Digicel, the Ministry of Education. We were really able to strengthen those partnerships and facilitate the opening of schools and education for our students, very important. Partners with Carolec, that's a Caribbean utility group, the wider business community, and many leaders has been essential. These partnerships have brought us thus far, and it's these partnerships that will carry us through the final stages of restoration. One example of such partnership is one of the things we did for the first time. We brought in the members of parliament and councillors into our incident command that's set up regionally in the parishes of Westmoreland and St. James, because their areas have been catastrophically damaged. And they were not only able to see all that we were doing in terms of the response, the restoration of our systems, but very importantly, provided meaningful input to inform our restoration, and that has worked very well for us so far, and we will only continue to build on that. From the outset, we were deliberate in placing customers at the center of our restoration strategy. Every decision was guided by restoring our customers as safely and as quickly as possible. That focus drove multiple first-time, best-in-class initiatives anchored on a customer-centric approach. These initiatives included enhanced pre-hurricane coordination with fellow utilities and new incident command structure to better streamline the response, deeper and broader stakeholder engagement, and clear, concise communication with customers across multiple channels. Through innovations such as the emergency mobile power generator, we have provided power to essential services sooner. We have helped businesses to open and communities to regain a sense of normalcy, while permanent design and rebuild of the grid infrastructure in some areas continue. With that said, let me be very clear. We here at JPS are acutely aware of the approximately 17,000 customers who remain without power. To the 9,341 customers in Westmoreland, the 6,370 customers in St. Elizabeth, the 780 customers in St. James, and the 253 customers in Hanover, we see you, we hear you, we care about you, and we want to assure you that each and every one of you, let it be known that the work will not stop until every light is back on. Over the next 2 weeks, there'll be some more significant progress. Through the end of February, we expect to provide power to an additional 7,000 customers. This will reduce the number of customers without power to fewer than 10,000 by the end of February. The estimated timeline for areas expected to be restored by the end of February will be published on our website by the end of this week. Our target is for the remaining under 10,000 customers who are primarily, more than 95% of these customers are primarily in two parishes, Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth. And our target is to have those customers in those parishes who are able to receive service to have access to the grid between March and April of 2026. I want to emphasize the ability to receive service, because based on surveys we have done and through partnerships with JSIF, that's the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, we have identified that approximately 40% of the remaining customers are not yet ready to receive power due to damage to their property and electrical infrastructure. In those cases, electricity cannot be restored safely until those issues are addressed. The good news is we are working closely with JSIF and community partners to connect customers once their premises are ready. Our Jamaican line workers, who are amongst the most experienced in the region, form the cornerstone of our restoration effort. They were supported by overseas crews particularly from North America, whose role was to accelerate the progress in areas where damage was most severe and catastrophic, and a lot of the main thoroughfares were totally devastated. The work involved heavy lifting in devastated communities, rebuilding the backbone of the grid, and using specialized large equipment to stabilize and rebuild damaged infrastructure. We are now at a stage whereby with 12 to 14 parishes now substantially restored, we have entered the next phase of our recovery. This phase includes demobilization of the overseas North American line workers and the redirection of our local and regional teams from the central and eastern parishes that have been restored now to the western region to help complete restoration. This is the last mile. The roads are narrower, the terrain more challenging, and with limited access for large, specialized equipment, it will require more climbing of poles and intricate knowledge of the landscape. We are being supported by our regional partners, and I just had a conversation with Minister Johnson and thanked her and her team for that support and look forward to that continued support as we go through the end. So we have our regional partners, and we also have approximately 18 Caribbean utilities through Carolec, along with regional contracting firms who continue to support us. This, of course, is while working alongside our own JPS crews to bring that restoration to completion. As the overseas crews leave the island this weekend, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks for their tireless efforts throughout the restoration process. We have deliberately maintained a strong presence in our communities. Our teams have been on the ground 7 days a week, meeting with community and business leaders, engaging directly with residents, and providing practical support, including charging services and ice distribution. We will be increasing our stakeholder engagement with community fairs and community meetings. Just today, we'll be hosting 2 such communities meetings in St. Elizabeth. One this morning at Hodges Land and another in the afternoon in Park Mountain. And that's where my Senior Vice President of Customer Experience is right now to facilitate those meetings. Pia, we wish you all the best as you do those meetings today. On Thursday, we will be in Beeston Springs in Westmoreland. We strongly believe hearing from our communities directly and identifying their needs at a more granular level while we support the work that's remaining to be done in these communities is a critical component to our restoration process. Our presence has not been limited to operations alone. At the leadership level, we have relocated 2 of our incident command centers to the Western region, immersing ourselves in the communities that are still to be restored. And I want to commend and compliment Minister Vaz for taking the time to tour those regional centers with us and also sharing his insights and input. This type of immersion ensures that senior decision-making is happening close to where the remaining work is, keeping us fully focused on the realities on the ground and maintaining clear accountability in this final phase. Let me close by saying this. As you look on the screen and you see the progress that we have made, I want you to know that despite everything that we have done so far and everything that I have shared, there are still approximately 17,000 customers who remain without service. You have my word that we will not ease up, we will not rest until every customer is restored. Success for us is every household once again being able to live, work, and care for family with the dignity, comfort, and opportunity that reliable electricity provides. We fully recognize that we here at JPS have an elevated responsibility that comes with being the nation's electricity provider, especially in a moment of unprecedented devastation. We know the strain this disruption has placed on families and businesses, and we are grateful for the understanding and patience that has been shown under extremely difficult circumstances. Through it all, Jamaicans have demonstrated extraordinary resilience. That resilience deserves a response that matches it. You have our firm commitment that we will continue to work around the clock without pause until every job is finished and the lights are back on to each and every customer. Thank you very much. Be safe and be well.
Thank you very much. And next we're going to have Minister Vaz. Minister Vaz, you know, we're congratulating JPS a lot. I want to congratulate you because we know that this is historic. This restoration is historic. And Senator Morgan was just saying that this should be documented for the world to see how you do restoration. But I think a big part of that story is going to be the government of Jamaica, Minister Vaz, and the support that was given in terms of that loan. And so, thank you, Minister Vaz.
Thank you very much, colleague Dana Dixon, colleague Kamina Johnson-Smith, JPS management, and of course, all other special guests here. Let me just start by saying, commitment made, commitment kept. It's not often that you come to a post-cabinet press conference, or anywhere for that matter, and the JPS receives a rousing applause. I want to put on record that 106 days later, as I said before, commitment made, commitment kept. But it's important that we recount how we got here, because as we know, memories are short. Initially, when I met with the JPS, days after Hurricane Melissa, and I asked them for the damage assessment and also to indicate to me what the restoration time was. I was told the last quarter of 2026, which means September to December. I said that is not workable, because by then we probably wouldn't even have anything to pick up. The pieces would be all over the place. I then said, come to me with a plan as to how we are going to get early restoration. They came back initially with estimates as high as $450 million US for a rebuild and restoration, because some areas had to be rebuilt, the grid. They narrowed that down because I asked them to give me a figure that would get us restoration by February end of February. To full restoration was the words I used, save and except, obviously, for those areas that would not be ready to receive, and of course those areas that had more challenges than others. Let's fast track to the controversial $150 million loan that the government gave to JPS. That came out of a figure that was broken down specifically for restoration, meaning exactly what you see has taken place with the overseas linesmen and the equipment. And that was on the basis of a loan from the government that would make sure that we could get early restoration. But there were other challenges because JPS was not in a position to raise funds because of the fact that they had a license that was on the verge of expiring, for which we had indicated that there would be a new license with new terms come July 2027. And we were now faced as a government with a situation where JPS could borrow the money, but they would need an extension of up to 10 years on the existing license. A commitment that I gave the people of Jamaica just a few months ago to say that a new license would be in place by 2027, July. We were able to separate the two issues. So the negotiation of a new license continues separate and apart from the restoration, which in itself was a huge victory for the people of Jamaica. More importantly, when I went to Parliament and I spoke about the loan, I was taken to task by all, including the leader of the opposition, to say that the $150 million should not be released until we knew and the country knew where the balance of the approximately $250 million was going to come from. And it was a heated exchange, I recall it very well, where in essence, the positions of the government and the opposition differed because we were prepared to move with the $150 million while JPS worked out exactly what would take place thereafter in terms of the continuation of the build-out of the grid. Let us say that the decision was a wise and diligent and effective decision because the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And what JPS said, not me, what JPS said is that we are at 97.5%, and by the end of February, under 10,000 persons will have been not restored, for which we will work on those in the months of March and April. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say that it's now down to spearfishing and not net fishing. Net fishing is what took place over the last few weeks with the hundreds of linesmen. Now it is spearfishing in the individual communities to the individual homes that are having the problems in terms of preparing themselves for electricity. But I want to say to the JPS, and I want to remind Jamaica, it's not me, it is the JPS who said, without an intervention of the government of the $150 million Jamaican dollars, restoration would have taken up until the end of this year and possibly going into 2027. I ask you to just pause and just think about that. As a country, the productivity and the suffering people, I want to make a commitment to say to those 10,000 persons, 17,000 as of today and 10,000 as of end of this month, that the government is going to stay on top of JPS. We're not leaving you. I'm not into percentages. The only percentage I'm into is 100%. So I know the anxiety, I know the frustration. Why me? Why my community? Everybody else have light, I don't have light. It's the luck of the draw. It's where the hurricane struck, and only that man upstairs can answer the questions as to why me. What I can say to you is that we are fully committed to stay and partner with the JPS to continue to make sure that the restoration is 100% in the shortest possible time. And I say to you, again, without fear of contradiction, that the difference between the position that this government took and a possible alternate government is the difference between having light at 97.5% today and 98 or 99% by the end of this month, and not having light until the end of 2026, 2027 early. So I know that we are rushed, so let me just get into the update of the telcos, etc. And to say over the past week we have transitioned from immediate emergency response into sustained infrastructure rebuilding, reconnecting communities, stabilizing telecommunication networks, and accelerating electrification support for households that were severely impacted. Many Jamaicans have now seen services restored. However, there are still pockets of the country that, especially in sections of the western region, where restoration requires extensive grid reconstruction, not just repair. We spoke about that already. So the Universal Service Fund, National Public Connectivity Restoration, branded Connect 2 Recovery, continues to drive restoration of public internet infrastructure damaged during the hurricane. The program targets the recovery of 419 public connectivity sites island-wide, including community Wi-Fi locations, public Wi-Fis. So far, out of a total of $863 million Jamaican dollars, 443 have already been committed, and the procurement activities remain active. Completion is on track for March 31st of 2026. In terms of flow, mobile service restoration has reached approximately 96% of sites island-wide, while fixed network infrastructure is about 94%. Customer reconnection on fixed networks stand at 77% and continues to improve as power supply stabilizes. Digicel continues to advance its post-hurricane network restoration. As of February 10th, 904 of the 925 mobile sites are online, representing approximately 98% network restoration, with customer connectivity levels now reaching 99%. Rebuilding works are also progressing, with 37 sites already completed and additional 5 scheduled for completion by the end of March. So you will see that basically end of March seems to be when full restoration in terms of the telcos and JPS restoration. I want to just touch very quickly on a very important part of the program that is going to support the JPS, and that is the National Energy Poverty Reduction Program, which the government allocated $1 billion to mobilize support for post-Hurricane Melissa electrification. Phase 1 delivery is reaching just over 2,700 households through a combination of house wire and minor building repairs and electrical certification. Works required to restore safe access to the national grid. Of that, 1,542 households are receiving minor building repairs alongside with wiring and government electrical regulator certification support. An additional 1,200 households are benefiting from the new house wiring installations aimed at regularizing electricity access. So approximately 6,000 households are receiving free inspection and certification services to ensure that reconnections are compliant with the national electrical safety standards. So from a financial standpoint, we're talking about 1,542 households represent an investment of $462 million. New house wiring installations account for $180 million, while GER inspections and certifications for 6,000 households represent an additional $180 million in program support. Again, all of this is due to be completed between February and April 2026. Let me reiterate. This is a grant. This is support that the government is giving, that these householders are benefiting from anywhere between 150 and 300,000 Jamaican dollars per household, depending on the extent of the work that is being done. Many of those persons that have been damaged by Melissa don't have the first $3,000, much less $300,000. So it is very important that we understand that the government is using all its resources and using everything possible to collaborate a joined-up approach, working with JPS to make sure that we get you recovered faster. Last but not least, and that is the Starlink procurement. You know that I'm someone who just speaks open and frankly. I have taken note of the public commentary since the release of the AG's report on the Starlink procurement and my subsequent press release. While I believe the issue has boiled down to the fact that I directed the procurement of Starlink devices rather than the head of the agency, I wish to make the following clear. This was not by chance on the following basis. I was clear on the advice of the Attorney General's chambers. The Director General was newly appointed to the position in an overwhelming situation of a major national disaster just days ahead. ODPEM was in the midst of coordinating overall response to all the relief efforts taking place in Jamaica. This matter was time-sensitive and of an urgent nature, of an alternative measure of connectivity and communication based on disruption, which was severely hampering the relief efforts, including search and rescue, evacuation, food and medical assistance. Using my discretion and exercising my judgment as Minister of Telecommunications as well as co-chair of the Cabinet Subcommittee in charge of relief and recovery in the aftermath of a Category 5 hurricane disaster, allowed me to easier access the scarce supply of Starlink devices, negotiate the best prices, as reports of price gouging had already emerged to get access to Starlink devices ahead of the paperwork processing for direct procurement. Therefore, getting the devices deployed into the field to improve the government's efficiency response to the recovery efforts, allow the affected persons to communicate with family and loved ones, allow the access of cash from ATMs in the severely affected areas, allow for first responders to coordinate response in the affected areas, to include elected representatives, councillors, MPs, police and military personnel, police stations, JDF field operations, just to name a few. And to say, despite all of the commentary, there was no implication of corruption in this matter. I wish to make it abundantly clear my respect for the Auditor General's Department and the Auditor General and the work it is mandated to do. But I maintain this is a national disaster. Extreme times require practical and prudent actions. And as a senior legislator and minister of government, I am always reminded that I'm under duty to uphold the Constitution and laws of Jamaica, for which I fully respect. Thank you very much. Commitment made, commitment kept. Anybody here from the Gleaner? Anybody here from the Observer? I'm here from TVJ. Anybody here from Nationwide? Commitment made, commitment what? Kept. God bless you.
All right. Thank you, Minister Vaz. He never fails to have a good presentation here. And so remember, we have a time constraint this morning. So members of the media, I'm going to ask you to direct your questions for Minister Johnson-Smith. She will leave first, and then Minister Vaz and JPS will be taking questions. I hear you want to go first. Who wants to go first? Okay. Yes, so I'm going to take all of Minister Johnson-Smith's questions first, and then you can just do one answer comprehensively.
Morning, everyone. I'm Jamila Maitland from TVJ News.
Good morning.
To Minister Johnson-Smith, There was a report recently about the Jamaican government denying or rejecting an offer or a request from the Cuban government to purchase oil. The Minister of Energy did come out to say that there was no truth to that. I ask now because you are Foreign Affairs Minister. Some things may come through you and may not have reached the minister as yet. So I'm asking, was there any request made to purchase any oil, official channels, and what consideration, if any, is being discussed given the global implications?
Okay, thank you. And Mahiri?
Morning, everybody. Mahiri Stewart, Nationwide News here. My question to Senator Johnson-Smith would be, not too long ago, the U.S. government did release a list of countries that would have suspended immigration visa processing, and Jamaica was one of them. In terms of, has there been any dialogue with the U.S. government to figure out why Jamaica has been put on this list, and can anything be done for Jamaica to be taken off?
All right, those are the two questions for her. All right, Minister? Should I have a student ask a question? Any of you from Department of Government want to ask a question? No? All right, okay, so that's it.
Thank you very much. On the first question, no, there were no requests for purchase of fuel, whether oil, gas, LPG, or any other from Cuba. As Minister Vaz quite effectively communicated, we have not sold, we don't sell LPG at all. Government of Jamaica doesn't sell it. So it would be unlikely to get such a request. And similarly, we have no history, certainly not in the past decade, and likely to be even beyond that, of selling fuel to Cuba in other circumstances either. So no, there's been no request. And secondly, in respect of the immigrant visas, there has been engagement. There has not been any clarity on the basis for which Jamaica was placed on that list. In fact, the general sentiment is one of surprise, but it is a broad examination of processes, we're advised, and that the system is paused. So we continue to remain engaged and open to providing information that's requested, but generally there's been a sense of openness to engagement and recognition that Jamaicans generally are productive members of the diaspora community, and we continue to leverage that in discussions that we hold. Okay.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. All right, we will continue, and some of our friends from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs have to leave us, but we're going to continue with the questions. So we're going to take questions now for Minister Vaz and JPS. You have any? Okay. All right.
Jamila again. To Minister Vaz, your initial response to the Auditor General's report on Starlink was one of complete rejection. This morning, you seem to be almost going back on what you're saying with a clarification. Are you now accepting the fact that you did, in fact, breach the procurement guidelines?
Thank you very much. My press release stated my position. What I am commenting on now is the commentary that has taken place subsequent to that, and the fact that it has boiled down to the question as to whether or not, as minister leading the procurement, that was a breach or not. My position is very simple. I'm justifying my position while basically paying respect to the AG's department and her for her job that she does, because I do not wish to become in a controversial position with any agency of government. My position remains that I justified today why I did it, because I believe it's important to clear the noise so that people hear from me directly as to the position that I have taken. It's a very simple position. I didn't have to comment, but that's not my nature.
So just to follow up, is that yes, you accept that you breached the procurement guidelines?
I accept fully what was said by the AG in relation to me getting involved in the procurement However, what I'm saying is that in a national emergency, I did what I needed to do as Minister of Telecommunications and Minister and co-chair of the Advisory Committee for Relief and Recovery for Hurricane Melissa. I will say it again, if unfortunately next year, Hurricane Darrell or Hurricane Dana comes, and I find myself in the same position, yes, I will have to get written up again. Extreme times require extreme actions. People suffering, people to be evacuated, search and rescue, can't wait on a procurement process that takes weeks, especially when you have an agency advice that you can go to direct processing. If I didn't do what I did, those starlings would not get into the system for at least 1 month in a national disaster.
All right,
Question,
thank you.
Minister. So then, in that context, then, would you then agree that there should be changes to legislation to make things like this easier for you to do in the future?
That's a no-brainer. Our Prime Minister has already spoken on this issue, and I look forward to what takes place going forward, because that's an absolute no-brainer. You cannot have the same guidelines in normal times that you have in extreme times. And therefore, the fact of the matter is that if that's what obtains, and there's only procurement for normal times, then we have to use our judgment as persons who have been elected and persons who have been appointed to do what is best to represent and protect the people of this country. And for that, I have no apology.
So would you then say that one of those legislative changes would be to empower ministers such as yourself to do what you
I
did?
don't know. No, I don't think it has to do that. I think it just has to deal with emergency practical solutions. It doesn't have to specifically deal with Starlink. It's just emergency as against normal times. And what obtains in emergency to be able to get the reaction that you need when people are out there dying and suffering.
And last question would be to Minister Morris Dixon.
Sure.
Jamaica received a score of 44 out of 100 on the Corruption Perception Index that ranks us 73rd out of 180 countries. What's the government's response to this rating? It's the 6th year in a row we've been rated 44, and what does the government think it can do to increase our rating in the future?
All right, so thank you for that question. And I saw the ranking, as you clearly said, it is the same number as before. But we also have to note that that has been an improvement. And so that has been our highest ranking in history. And that is because of active work of the government. And so, you know, we talk a lot about the Integrity Commission, which is a creature of this administration largely, and every year it's funded. And so we've put in place quite a number of mechanisms in order to be able to be at the ranking we currently are. Would we like to be higher? Absolutely. And I think that you see that kind of openness in our country. You have an Auditor General who has been exploring so many aspects of our work after this emergency. And that has been unfettered. The government has not intervened. The government has been very clear that we are anti-corruption. And so we welcome the ranking again. We've not, reduced in terms of our ranking, in terms of the score that Jamaica has gotten, which is a good thing. But we do want to see that score go higher. And as we continue in terms of our own work and our own legislative work, that is a key component of this administration. And we've never shied away from that. And even things like this, where we're very open, taking your questions on an Auditor General report also signify how important it is for us. Accountability is everything in this administration. Okay.
My follow-up is from the CPI, so I'll just ask before the student,
Okay, sure.
if that's okay. So in addition to the findings, Minister, the CPI index also revealed that for the first time in 10 years, corruption is now at an average 42. That's out of 100. Mm-hmm. The higher the score, the better.
Perception.
Corruption perception. CPI. So I said CPI. Okay. So it's now at 42 out of 100, which is very bad for the first time in a decade. it represents what the Transparency International is calling widespread corruption in the public sector. Do you think it's an indication of what we're seeing in Jamaica? And it's a global index,
Yeah.
but bring it back home based on the reports that we're seeing, based on the work of the government. What's your reaction to all of that?
I think, it is a global study, and I'd encourage everybody to read the study because it looks at corruption globally, and it raises questions about countries that we sometimes would want to be admiring. And so it's not just a Jamaica situation, and I think we have to look at it very holistically. But I do think in the Jamaican context, I am particularly proud of the administration, and as someone who probably I'm one of the newer ones into politics. When I looked in on the outside, you have all these perceptions, and I come in, and I see how hard it is to do a simple procurement. And I see all the checks and balances that we've put into our system to prevent corruption. Sometimes I feel we've overcompensated. And so it's as if we're treating everybody as if they are criminal. But we have a robust system here, and we should be very proud of that. Now, there's always going to be a delay in terms of perception. That's always going to be a feature. And so we've done a lot of work, and we've seen that work, and it's been real work that has been done in Jamaica. And we know that things are definitely better in terms of accountability, and the accountability systems are strong in this country. Now, are there elements of corruption? Yes. Do you find them? Auditor General or Integrity Commission, whichever one of the many bodies that we have empowered in our country. They will unearth these, and that's a good thing that they can be unearthed. The key thing is that we have a system that has been improved significantly over time, and it's something we should be proud of, but we don't stop there. There's obviously more work to be done, and that work has to be done. And our administration is very clear on the fact that this is important. If you look in our manifesto, you see it in there. You may not see it in others, but you saw it in our manifesto because it was something that we felt, even though we've made strides, there's still more work to be done. All right. A student has a question, and I know they're about to kick me out of the room.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My question is directed...
What's your name, and where are you from?
My name is Tanuja Mullings. I am from the University of the West Indies, Mona campus. My question is directed towards the JPS representative. My question is, how do you believe that post-hurricane recovery efforts have been improved in the event of future hurricane events? And is the JPS now better equipped to deal with these issues amidst shifting climatic patterns?
All right, you hear that, Hugh? Good question.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that question. Great question, and all the best in your studies at UWI. In regards to our efforts, a few things. We have done some significant changes in terms of our response. So as you think in terms of hurricane, you think of some main buckets, right? You think about first the prevention in terms of what can you do to prevent the extent of the damage. Then you think about a heightened response to recover as quickly as possible. In regards to our systems, JPS has made significant investments in the grid, both from a technology perspective and also some element of smart devices on our grid that gives us greater visibility that will enhance our response. As we also go forward, we continue to benchmark with best in class and bring those practices in. What does that look like? We have revamped our entire incident command structure to a best in class, first class incident command structure to streamline response. The other thing that we have done is we have also built in some element of resilience in all that we're doing. That resilience takes several shapes or form. In the interest of time, I won't go through them here, but I'll be more than willing to talk with you after to talk through the element of resilience. That combined element of resilience, heightened response, and investment in technology, I think positions us well along with a key anchor, which is strong partnerships heightened collaboration with key stakeholders such as government and other owners of critical infrastructure, so we have a coordinated response, one common voice for the best interests of this great nation of Jamaica and our people.
All right, thank you. And Hugh didn't note also that in cabinet, that the cabinet had said as a part of restoration, resilience had to be a key component of that work. And JPS has done a very good job there. All right, so I'm going to Antoinette. Pardon? Okay, all right. I'm told there are no more questions, but I need the help of TVJ, and I need the help of Nationwide in telling what I'm going to say next. And so there's some young people who are here with us today, and they are participating in the 37th Ship for World Youth program, which is an important program in collaboration with the government of Japan. And that's why the Japan ambassador is here with us today. So the Ship for World Youth program has been in operation since 1988, and it is designed to strengthen leadership capacity among young people through intercultural exchange, structured dialogue, and applied problem solving. And so we have some of our Jamaican young people who are going to be a part of this. It's a part of our government's commitment also to our young leaders to come. And you're already leaders in your own right. And so this morning we have them here, noting that they're going to be doing some fantastic work in Japan. A key component of their program is a project-based learning experience in Aichi, Japan. And during that phase, they are going to be collaborating with local government bodies in Japan, academic institutions, and community organizations to examine real-world development challenges and propose practical context-specific solutions. So when you go to Japan and you learn what they're doing there, you have an obligation to come back to Jamaica as leaders and to integrate that into the Jamaican setting. So you are our ambassadors. We're sending you out there to represent Jamaica well and to learn as much as you can and to come back with that learning in Jamaica. And so this year, Ms. Yannick Williams, our Senior Director in Youth and Adolescent Policy Division in our Ministry of Education, is going to be leading the team there. We also have, and if you're here, you can stand, Ms. Cherie Lee Mills, who is a student at the University of the West Indies. We also have Mr. Chandre Powell, who is a Youth Innovation Center beneficiary and a member of the National Youth Council of Jamaica. We also have Ms. Christine Salmon, General Secretary for the National Youth Council of Jamaica, and she's also a community health aide in the State Mary Health Department. Ms. Danielle Brown, President of the Leo Club of Mandeville, and she's a student at Northern Caribbean University, and Mr. Davel O'Connor, another Youth Innovation Center beneficiary and member of the Mitigation and Adaptation to Climate Change group. And so these are some of our young people who are going off to Japan to represent Jamaica, and I want to thank the government of Japan. They're covering all of the costs, airfare, food, accommodations, everything. And so, Ambassador, I just want you to convey to the people of Japan our gratitude for this. It's a great opportunity for young people. It definitely is aligned with our government's focus on youth development. And so please go forth and do well and represent us well. Thank you. All right, and so we're closing out because they wanted the room. And it's been a good morning. You heard a lot. You heard from Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Vaz, JPS. It's been a good morning, and this is again our commitment to openness on the part of government. What you're hearing here today is what we would have discussed in cabinet. So you're getting a feel of the discussions taking place there. And so as I close out, and it's Valentine's Day week, I wear my red today to symbolize Valentine's Day. I know some people will say, I have no girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or wife. That's okay. You have God. God loves you. So there's one person who is always going to love you. And so on this Valentine's Day, even if nobody is giving you flowers, still buy yourself the flowers. and remember that God loves you and God loves Jamaica. And so we pray, we continue to pray that God will continue to show us his love and to protect this wonderful country we call Jamaica. Thank you all, and see you next time.
I go show them my way of justice.
I'm abused.
I need legal advice. I don't deserve this.
The truth of the matter is, Justice Day